Good morning, my fair lady. What's your name, please?
My name is Ayreen Bredlo.
Where do you come from?
I originally come from Canada.
And what you're interesting about the Falashas?
I first read an article in the Jerusalem Post written approximately last April of 75, the year 75. And I became very interested in them and began to pray for them. And then in October I decided to go and to visit them. So I was in Ethiopia. I went up to Gondar and walked out to the first Falasha village that I saw, which was Walaga. And there I met the chief rabbi and the school teacher and a young man by the name of Getohan Melvo, who I was very fortunate because he spoke English. And,
yeah. You said October. Which October? 75?
Yeah, October of 75.
75.
The last part of October.
Yes. Did you remember the name of the chief rabbi of the Falashas in Uganda?
Rabbi bin
Uri ben Baruch.
Uri bin Baruch.
And his son, did you know his son, Yair ben Baruch?
Yes.
He's the teacher of the Walaga?
Yes, I stayed in his home with
Yes.
his wife and two young girls.
Yeah. How was the condition there?
Well, the condition was very poor by our so-called standards, but by their standards, that in his home, he was much better off because it wasn't in an actual house. It was built, not an actual hut, it was built more as a house than a hut. I was very comfortable there. I enjoyed my time there.
Did you saw enough food for the population there?
No,
There?
definitely not. There's not enough food for the population. But one doesn't see it so much in Walaga
Yeah.
until you go out and start going into the village and visiting from hut to hut and to see what their problems are, see what they eat, because they're very generous. And you come in there and the first thing they offer you is chai or coffee. And if you're hungry, they offer you injera or some wat, and if it's cold, they'll offer to heat it up. Or perhaps, which I really enjoyed, coral, which could either be roasted wheat or barley, or corn, or roasted peas, or roasted beans, which I really enjoyed. It's very good.
Tell me what the high of the hygiene. Did you see clinics, doctors there?
Only in one area, and this was in the big main
Ambover.
Border. And that's the only area that I saw where really there was some attempt of help was shown to
Yeah.
the people, which caused, which in many other villages, if one could see it, you would really understand what they were going through, but you had to see it really to believe it.
Yeah. Would you say only in one area? Did you visit the other area?
Yes,
Yeah.
I visited as many areas as I heard about.
Yeah.
And went out there
For
as soon as
example?
I could. Now, some of these areas, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce them.
Yeah. For
But-
example, Samien area. Did you have been in Samien area?
Yes, I went to the Simeon mountain area
Yeah.
and walked in around that area for 8 days.
8 days.
8 days.
Walk.
Yes, we walked. And one day, one of the men in the village took pity on me and decided that he'll give me a mule,
Yeah.
which I rode on the flat places, but we all had to walk up the steep places because it was even difficult for the mule. But I enjoyed it very much because the people that led us from village to village, sometimes it would be 2 of the men, and sometimes it would be a young boy, sometimes it would be an old man. But they did this because they wanted to make sure that our safety was ensured from one village area to the other. And they carried their guns over their shoulder, and those that had bullets would have them strung across their chest or around their waist. They're very fond of their guns, which are very old guns from the time of the war before.
1914 maybe, yeah.
No, I think a bit later than that. I think in the
Yeah.
time of the Italian occupation. But they
Some
told
of them,
me,
yeah.
they told me that one bullet cost $10
Yeah.
Ethiopian, which would be about $5 American for one bullet.
You know why? Because they made handmade.
Yeah, and most of them still
Yeah.
make them handmade. And they find them, but sometimes they shoot animals to eat.
Yeah. What the interesting, what did you have been see in Samien area? Something religious art still remain there?
Religious art?
Yes, I mean history of religious.
Oh, well, I was very interested more in the spiritual aspect of the Philoshes than in even their natural condition. Being a nurse, I could understand that. I could understand what sort of condition they lived in and what would make it so. But I was more interested in their spiritual condition because I feel that even as the Philoshes feel that God wants them to come to Israel, not just one or two or a few from one family or one village, but God wants all of the Philoshes to come to Israel. That's his promise to them. And this they believe also, and they want to come. So when I heard myself that in the central main village area in the Simeon, where about 1,000 Philoshes live, I was told that this was considered to the Philoshes the Holy of Holies. So I knew definitely that that was one area I wanted to go. I didn't care if it had to take me a whole 30 days to get there. I wanted to go and see that area. For it was in this area, in the mountain, close by the village, about a day's walk and upward, is where they told me the story that 60 Philoshe monks committed suicide rather than surrender to the occupation of the one king who would make them to be Christians. And there they were in baskets, hung suspended over the edge of the mountain. And when they knew that victory was no longer in their hands, they gave themselves into their God and they committed suicide and fell to their deaths. And that area today is known as a very holy area. And even today, which I found very amazing, that when the Philoshes want to have a healing from God, when they're sick, because they don't have the same medical attention that we are spoiled with, but they have to believe God for their healing. So they go up there and they fast and they pray, and most of them fast and pray for a week, usually 7 days.
7 days fasting?
7 days fasting, but their fasting is, sometimes it is just eating dried peas rather than anything else, and water. Whether they fast on water the whole day, some of them, but it depends how much they want to get a hold of God as to how strict their fast is. And so I said to them, oh, I understand that. I says, I also fast. I says, I believe that God heals also. I says, I understand that. I says, that's tremendous. I said, I'm pleased to hear it. And they very excitedly told me that God had answered their prayers and God heals them when they go there. And I know that God would heal them. Why shouldn't he heal them? Because they have made the effort to go and to talk to God and to show him their determination to believe him that they believe him, that he will heal them, inquiring of him. And God, when God sees that faith, of course he will heal them. So I was thrilled to know that there were areas. And also on the way, as we were walking to this village, an older man from one village pointed out to me way in the distance a mountain that stood alone, had a very peculiar shape to it. And he said, to that mountain the women that are barren go to pray and fast and believe God will make their womb fruitful. And they tell me that God answers their prayer. And they asked me if I believe this, and I says, of course I do. I says, why shouldn't God heal his people if they make the effort to fast and pray and ask him to? I says, God is a righteous God.
Yeah. Something serious and sometimes, funny, Well, I know this area, and I know the Samien area. It is an area of the holiness people. A lot of prophets came from the area, and I know by the history of the Philoshes history that was a big fight around the Samien.
Yes, yes.
And the fight, what you described, this was fight of King Yardai. And it is a famous, the fight of King Yardai. There was a king of the Philoshe, time of 1412. And I remember the battle, what was it there. Yes, it's still believed. And tell me, did you saw another area, for example, near the Nile?
Near the,
Yes.
what area was that?
Well, the Gojam area, Gorgora, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. This I also found very interesting because here
Yeah.
was a group of people that were led by an old man, 80
Yeah.
years old, Otto.
Ato wala say.
Yes.
Wasay.
Was that? He was 80 years old, and we enjoyed the hospitality of his home.
Yeah.
And his wife was also very elderly. And he told me that he was the leader of over 300 families that lived in this area. And they are what the other Falashas call, or other Ethiopians call, the converted Falasha area, in this particular area. And I found him an extremely interesting man to talk to, because not only did he know his Bible very well, and from the beginning of Genesis to the book of Revelation, but he also knew many of the tremendous history that involved the Falashas, which was told him by his father and told him by his grandfather. And
For examples.
I would like to tell you just probably a little bit. I wrote it down because I found it so interesting what he was telling me. So I will just read to you here some of what I had written. Approximately 2 generations ago in the 19th century, this area was a great Falasha stronghold. The area Gorgor near Lake Tana, which one could see right from his home. You could see the actual lake. Had a well-known, very righteous monk. He was known as a very holy monk, even among the other monks there, and among not only the Falashas, but also the Christians. He was well known as a holy person by all people. And he was not only good to the Falashas, but he was also very good to the Christians. Those that were poor, he would give them to eat. Those that didn't have blankets, he would give them blankets. And he had a tremendous love for the people. And he was known to all as a very holy man. And one day there was one particular chief that, not a priest, but a chief of this one area who was Christian, and would tantalize him and irritate him by calling him cannibal, which incidentally they still call them to this day. As I heard it with my own ears, they still call them cannibals.
Yeah, Balasek.
And they automatically thought, because I was with the Falashas, they automatically thought I was a cannibal also. They thought that I was Jewish also, and so they said, Getahu told me that, they said, oh, another cannibal from Israel came to visit them. So that was, I found very interesting. But this one chieftain area, he had some people underneath him who didn't like this monk very well, and who kept telling this chief that this monk was a very, very bad person, and would call him a cannibal. And then this person under his care said that he had heard that this monk was going to leave and go to another area, because the monk no longer felt that he could seek God with the same determination as before, because he was being ridiculed and called cannibal, and his life was made unbearable by this particular group around him. So when they found out that he was leaving, they decided to follow him with this chieftain. And the chieftain believed those that were underneath his care. He believed him. He thought, well, if my followers say that he's a bad man, then he must be a bad man. So they decided that they were going to follow this monk and his family and kill him, along with his cows and whatever else he had, and the other monks that were with him. So it wasn't too much later along the trail that they caught up to him. And they realized that they were going to be killed. So this righteous monk says, please, kill me first before you kill my son. hoping that it would give his son and his other helper time to flee. So they killed him first. And in the meantime, the son and the other helper tried to flee, but they killed him and the helper. And then they killed his cattle, and they killed all that were in that party. But a very strange thing happened then. After this area, the chieftain saw that he had killed them and thought that he had done a very good job, because this monk was what he believed to be a very unrighteous man and a very bad person. So he thought he did everyone a favor.
Yeah.
And but a strange thing happened. Where the righteous monk was killed, there arose immediately out of the ground bubbling water that sprung up out of the ground.
Spring.
A spring of water, bubbly water, like an artesian well, sprung up there. And this chieftain, as soon as he saw that, he realized, oh, he says, my God, what have I done? I have killed a righteous man. And he was very, very repentant. And so when he realized what had happened, he was very sorry. And so he was going to the other area to where this follower of his had, and he was going to talk to him, and he grew very angry. He decided to kill his follower because he realized that God showed him that that monk was a very righteous man. So he went to find where his follower was, and in going there, he tripped and he fell, and he cut his foot. And when he cut his foot, he decided he was going to wash it off. So he washed his foot off in this well of water that was springing up, and his foot was immediately healed. So he knew that again God was showing him that this was a righteous person. So he was more determined. So he went and he killed his follower, and he killed every other person that was there that followed. And to this, and in that area, because that area where he killed his follower was away from the area where the monk was killed, and in that area, what happened there is that that area, even today, is known to be a very stinky area, a very foul smell from that area. And
Still till now?
Still to now, there is a very peculiar smell there. Still to now, the Falashas still come to this area to be healed in these waters, and God heals them. But there is also, I was told that as the monk was dying, he cursed this particular tribe of Christians that killed him, the ones that were responsible for him killing him. He says, oh God, let all the women lose their virginity. Let no man desire them. And let them be stricken with ill health, disease, etc., etc. And to this day, that particular tribe of Christian, even way back, their women today are known to be very, what we would term in English, loose women, that they don't particularly hold very dear their being a virgin before they're married. Even to this day, and the rabbi told me this.
Also, he told you that about?
Yes, oh yes, he remembers the story. His grandfather told him the story also. But but there's something even more interesting in the story, that also where his cattle were killed, there's a very, sprung up from this area, very salty water.
Salty water?
Salty water.
In the area, I know this area no salty water.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the exact same spot.
Yeah.
It was 2 days march from where this man lived, but I didn't have the time. I was so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't have time, otherwise I would have went there. But to this day, Getahun told me, he still knows of people that bring their sick cows and cattle to this very area. They drink the water and they are healed. He says, it's very amazing. I says, it's not amazing. I says, I believe it, you know. And so he found it very strange that I should believe this. And I said, why shouldn't I believe it? I says, if the man is righteous and he is holy, and if he cursed the ground, or if he cursed the people, God heard that curse because he set himself apart to know God. He says, when people set themselves apart to know God, I says, God hears their prayers. And I says, do not hold lightly the prayers of people, whether they be Jew or Gentile, no matter on whose behalf, because God is going to hear them if they separate themselves, even as this monk did, to find out what God wants.
Wonderful.
So he was really amazed. But the rabbi also told me this other story, plus this man told me another story that I found very interesting.
All this in the part of Gojam area,
yes,
in Gorgora.
Yes, in Gorgora area.
Yeah.
He said, but other Christians, not from this particular tribe, can come to this area and they are healed also.
Yeah.
They're healed also. But Christians that come from this particular tribe, if they go into the water and bathe there, they either have many things happen to them. Either they end up with leprosy, they end up with very peculiar spots on their body, which are running sores, open sores, or they have very peculiar cuts on their body. This happens even today.
Yeah?
Even today. And the rabbi told me a story that his father told him. They knew of this one Ethiopian that wanted to go and bathe in the waters. And they knew that he was of this tribe. And they told him not to. And he thought, well, he's not going to believe in myth. He said that was just legend, that was myth. So he went there and he bathed. And he ended up with a very peculiar skin disorder, very peculiar skin disease, which shouldn't really happen, should it?
Yeah.
Really. And all of a sudden it happened. And I said, well, I can understand it. It's not difficult to understand. So,
I mean, he was the witness in this area.
this is what I am told. I didn't actually see this area myself, which I was very sorry. But this, the same story was told to me by 3 different old men. And this was told to them by their fathers and their grandfathers. And all the Philosophers know this story.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the story about this very righteous monk. And I found it very interesting. And I thought, well, there must be some place that I'll be able to look up and read for myself. There must be some books written concerning his life. I'm sure there must be some history of him.
They told you his name, the name of the monk?
I'm sure that they probably did.
Or maybe his name is Gorgorius?
I'm sorry, but I can't quite remember.
Gorgorius is a famous monk in the area. I remember from the history his name Gorgorius. Abba Gorgorius. He wrote several books and prayers for the Falashas.
It could very well be.
Yeah.
Could very well be. This is the name where they take the cows. Abba Mahari.
Abba Mahari.
Yeah. That's the area where they take the cows.
Yeah, Abba Mahari.
But I'd like to tell you some more about this area.
Yeah.
It's too bad that Getahun isn't here. He could always help me out. I'm always forgetting the Amharic names for these. But also this man was very happy to know that I had come from Israel for one of 2 reasons.
Yeah.
There was a man from England that was sent out by the association.
Yeah.
Mr. What was his name?
Julian K.
Julian K.
Julian K. Yeah.
And Getahun worked with him very much.
Yeah.
He was very good. Now Julian K. also felt that the Falashas that were here in this particular area should also get help. Because they're very poor. Nothing there.
No clinics.
300 families. One person, only one person in a whole 300 families, and there must be about 400 children, at least 400 children, has any sort of education in grade 9, because they are staying in Gondar.
Yeah.
Also, this man, with his own money, bought the land to build the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
They were told that 3 years ago, Julian K. Took the money, or this man bought it. Anyhow, I'm not quite sure how that worked. Whether he took the money and bought the logs to build the school, which they would split and to make the schoolhouse with, or this man did, this old man. Now, this man says to me, he says, we have the land. He says, there is the lumber. He says, no one has told me what I'm supposed to do. He says, our people need education, he said. And I says, of course they need education. They have no health. I says, where do you go to get your health? He says, they have to walk over a day for a clinic. He says, the clinics are so busy. He says, and he says, they have no place. Every one of them, because eye conditions are very bad in Ethiopia, every one of them need health attention. Every one of them have got parasites in them. Every one of them. Now, thank God, in the injera, the Tef injera is very high in iron. Yeah. So even if they're full of parasites, they still have good, strong hemoglobins because of the Tef. But they still, all of them need help. A lot of them have tuberculosis, especially in the Senior areas. Because of their heart conditions. Also, they have other health conditions like bronchitis, pneumonia. Yeah. And who's there to take care of them? Yeah.
שלום.
שלום.
תודה, מה שלומך?
בסדר. מה שלומך?
בבקשה, תביא לה כיסא, תשב. בסדר גמור, מה שלומך את? בסדר? בסדר גמור. Yeah.
Can need a lot of help.
Yeah.
So, what was it that I was telling you? Oh, yes. Concerning the wood to make the schoolhouse. He has the land here. And he wants to know, really, he wants to hear from you. What he's to do with the wood, because he showed me it's just lying here in the ground. It's already starting because it's the old gum trees and it's already starting to sprout out. It's been lying there over 3 years. And he has made it so that it's close to water supply. With his own money, he has dug a well with a tap for the women to wash the clothes. Also, for the people that come and get water. He paid for 3 months while the men were digging the well. He paid them. And he fed them. They stayed in his home. He's an old man, he says there's not very many that feel really the burden. But the people, he says, and I'm getting very old now, he says, who is going to follow after me? Yeah. So he says, I would like to know what I'm supposed to do with the wood. Are they going to build a schoolhouse for us? Because even yet, today, there are families in outer areas that are sending the children in to that area because they feel that the schoolhouse is already being built. It's already built. And he says, am I to sell the wood? Or am I to keep it? Or what's going to happen with it? It's already bought and paid for. All it needs is the schoolhouse to be erected. And so he wants to know what to do.
Okay.
Because Julian Kay started
תמי, אולי תעברי לחדר השני, כי בהקלטה שומעים את כל הרעש. תודה. Yeah.
So that's mainly his problem. And there's no help for them. They're very poor. It's a poor area also.
Yeah.
And he said that Mr. Julian Kay came out there several times to try to get a school started out there. Yeah. So at least they could get some sort of education. Because they have no education. No education whatsoever. No health care. And so they says, be sure to tell them in Israel, they said, that if the Jews aren't going to help us, they said, we're going to turn to the Christians. He says, because we want our children to be educated. He says, we know what will happen to them if they go to Christian schools. He said, they'll be converted. But our children need the education. They've got to have a better life than what we have while we're waiting to get into Israel. This is what they said. They especially want you to know that if the Jews won't help them, then they're turning to the Christians. But I've never enjoyed my soul so much as I did at this book. He was so wonderful. He was a very interesting man, and he knew his Bible very well. I would ask him questions, and he would ask me questions. And his
Do you
wife,
know the Bible yourself?
I love the Bible very much.
I mean, before you went to Ethiopia, did you know the Bible?
Yes, I read
Yeah.
the Bible. I read the Bible. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But they know it much better in smaller details than
Yeah.
I do. I probably don't know as much in word-wise as they do, but I believe when God says to pray, I believe in praying. I believe that God does a lot of the answers to a lot of praying. So I found him very delightful. And his wife was so wonderful. She made sure that we got enough to eat, and it was very delightful because she gave us curdled milk.
Yeah.
And it was just going a little bit sour. It was delicious, absolutely delicious. And even now I can taste in jar and what. I really got, so I love the food very much, very much. So that was his particular area, but I was very happy to meet that man. And then we went up to the Tigray province.
Yeah. You have been there?
Yes, I went up to that area, and there I met the chief rabbi for the Tigray province.
Yeah.
His,
You remember his name?
yes,
Yeah.
Yitzhak Yeshua.
Yeah. Abba Yitzhak Yehoshua.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
I met him. And 2 days after,
He is very religious man.
a very old man.
Very old and very
Yeah, he's
religious man.
about
Yeah.
70, 80.
78.
And,
Yeah.
About that, I wasn't quite sure, but I judged him to be about there. And it was very good. I asked him, when was the last time that you had any visitors come to this area? He said the last visitors that they had, they've never had any women visitors, any foreign women visitors.
Yeah.
And so they greeted me in the traditional Ethiopian manner, which was the wail of the women, which really thrilled me. I was quite pleased, although I wasn't quite sure what was going on at first, but then I understood it. But 2 black Jews, I was told, came from America.
Yeah.
I visited them
From America. From
America.
They went there. They was there.
They were from America. They came from America to Ethiopia. They went
Yeah.
to this particular rabbi's
Yeah.
village. And they were the ones that paid Eshkol, Michael Eshkol's
Yeah.
way to come here to Ethiopia. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Michael
Yeah.
led me there to the area. And they have his village is located in the most delightful spot, right next to a very high hill where they go to pray on, and they pray for the return of the exile. And they were praying 2 days later, they're in exile. And they wanted us to stay, but I felt that we should go on. But while I was there, he told me of some very holy religious books that they had. He asked me if I'd like to see it, and I said, oh yes, I'd like to see it. So I asked him if I may take a picture. So he wasn't dressed in his in the rabbi's
Shama.
yeah. So he went and got that on, and he got the old book out, and it told me it's 500 years old.
Of the books.
Of the book.
Which
This-
books did you saw?
I saw the old
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
very old book. It was still written in Geese, and it was written on the skin of probably cows,
Yeah.
and it was written in Geese.
In Giz.
In Geese.
But which books did he show you? I mean, books of the Bible or prayers?
This was the Bible. This was the Torah.
Yeah,
This
Torah.
was the Torah.
Orit, what they call it.
Yeah, And
Yeah.
so he read. It was really exciting because he read it in Geese.
Yeah.
And Michael translated it from Geese into Amharic. Getahan translated it from Amharic into English for me.
English.
And I said to him, why don't you read a story
Yeah.
out of the Torah? I says, you just pick any story that you want to read and read me a chapter of it. So he picked out the story of Samson.
Of Samson.
Yes, I was quite delighted. And he read the story. It was really quite exciting. Here he was sitting outside of the little hut where he kept all his books. And was reading, and there we were all leaning over his shoulder. One was translated from Geese into Amharic and Amharic into English. And that was really thrilling to me.
Means Mikhail Eshkol, you know Ge'ez?
Yes, he knows geese.
You know geese?
He knows geese. I find him very interesting there. And I stayed in his home in Meraín.
Where in at the Urva?
It is about 3 hours walk from the rabbi's
Yeah,
village.
it's at the Urva.
Yeah, I've got it all written down.
Yeah.
And we walked from the bus to the little place where the bus let us off, all through the fields, up the way to his place, which was about an hour and a half walk or something like that. And so the first night we stayed in the village of the rabbi.
Yeah.
The second night we stayed in his village in
Of
Meraín.
yeah.
Yeah, and he just had a little very, very, very small hut, which when they asked him to come and teach there, the people in the surrounding areas gave it to him. Now it's 2 little small rooms.
With
Nothing.
Nothing, right? Nothing. I know it's empty.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And he says, when I went to Nazmir, he says I was able to buy some things like a mattress to sleep on, he said, and a few things. He says, but I haven't been receiving any money at all from the Falasha organization whatsoever, he says. So I've had to sell my belongings little by little, he says, and this is, they sleep on
the ground.
On the bare ground. We slept on the bare ground also in his hut. His wife just...
Maza.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Wonderful woman.
Yeah.
He told me the story how they met.
Yeah.
He said he prayed for his wife, and he told me the story. I was quite excited about it. I said, that's a very good story. I said, that's how every man should ask for their wife. But his wife just came after having a baby girl.
Yeah, baby girl. She told me, after 80 days.
Yeah. So she was there in the village of the rabbi, staying in the house of life there for 80 days. And she just came back that day. They have 5 children, and the oldest is 10 years old.
Yeah.
Such well-mannered children I've never seen before. Very well-mannered. I was very impressed with them. And I know that they didn't have a thing in the house. They didn't have a thing to eat, not a thing. I know that she went to the neighbors. For me, she borrowed some milk, 2 eggs, some stuff to make in jar and water. And that's what, but she went and she bought it from the neighbors. Who knows how they're going to pay for it. But that's how they've been living. Just before I left Walka and that area, he came from Tigray. And I said, why are you here, Mikhail? He said, there's no food in the house. He says, I have to find a job. I said, you're not going to teach anymore? He says, I can't teach when there's no money. He says, my children are starving. He says, I've come here to try to find a job. There's no job to be had. He says, well, if I can't find any around Gondar, I'll have to go even as far as Bahadar. He says, I'll work on the road, I'll do anything. He says, I can't see my children starve to death. So the rabbi and the school teacher discussed it. So I know that he left the day before I left Gondar. And they gave him 60 Ethiopian dollars, which is $30 American money, which is nothing, really, for 5 mouths to feed. And the food's expensive there, very expensive. So he had nothing, so he decided to trust God again and believe that somehow God would perform a miracle for him and there would be some money coming for him so that he can stay there. Because he knows it's important that the people learn Hebrew. And he very much wants to come to Israel. Very much wants to. He's not very well liked by the man in Addis Ababa. And neither does the man in Addis Ababa like the rabbi or the school teacher or get to him. And there's friction there.
Yeah.
And because of that, get to him gets no money. He's other than what he feels he has to beg from the school teacher. And Mikhail doesn't get any money. And so they said, what are we to do? Here we're the ones that really believe that all the philosophers must go to Israel. They must get the promises from God. But no one helps them. And they just feel that it's one continuous fight after another. And they feel that they are believe that they should do things right. The things should be done right. Now, they have many problems in that aspect, but I think you should do that for the time, 'cause I want. But he showed me this, Berdello showed me this letter. Now, it was definitely it's written by someone who didn't like him. He certainly has got enough people that doesn't like him because he is working as the chief rabbi and the school teacher. But in this letter it stated that he was not only a Christian, but a Muslim, and that he was no longer a Jew. He says, can you please tell me how I can be a Christian and a Muslim at the same time? I says, I don't know. I says, but it seems to me that it's written by someone that doesn't think very favorably of you anyhow. But they wrote that to the association in America concerning him. So since then, these people are no longer taking any sort of interest in him. And I took Githon with me when we went to the various different villages. And I at least made sure he had enough food in his stomach, because he was the skinniest person I met. And same with Michael. Both very thin. They're malnourished, period. I asked him, what have you been living on? Well, this and that. He didn't want to say anything to me because he was ashamed. And I says, never mind, you don't have to tell me. I says, it's not important. I says, but today, I says, we're going to make sure you get some food in your stomach anyhow. So, make sure that he got some eggs and bread, and at least when I had a meal to eat, he had a meal to eat, and something like that. He says, when was the last time that you had a good meal to eat? I says, it's been a long time ago. And I says, well, when you're with me, he says, you're going to at least have something in your stomach. I says, might not have very much. I says, but you're going to have something anyhow. So because I was so thankful that he was able to take me in the various different areas. So, but I'm very concerned on his welfare, because we were so sure that it would have been able for him to get out, that he gave his blanket to his brother. He gave some of his clothes to his brother, because his brother never had anything. He was going to school in rags. And he gave this, and I gave my blankets away to the other family that had nothing. So when he came back up, because he came down to Addis with me to say goodbye, but we thought for sure that we could get him out. Every possible way. But it just seemed that every door was closed to him at that time. But I'm telling you, he's determined. He was so determined. He was so disappointed, very disappointed. He says, no one believes that I want to come to Israel. He says, no one really believes that I want to help my people. No one really believes it. He says, I don't even know what the man in Tel Aviv is, he said. And I says, well, I'm going to tell him. I said, because I've been with you practically day by day for the last 3 months. I said, if you were going to pull the wool over my eye, I'd certainly see a few tricks in you here and there. But all I saw was an intense dedication to his people. And I can tell you today, what Jewish person would stop their major education knowing that that would give them a good position in life to help their people?
Yeah. Well, look, the problem, it was, the history of the parasha, it is a long history. And the problem was, a couple of years ago, the problem was something religious, because the certificate of divorcing, it was difficult for us, for the religious of Israel law. Now completely is finished the problem of the clear of the parasha by chief rabbi. And well, during 16 years as I worked for them, to help them, I'm also a volunteer, like you see, volunteer. I spend my money, spend my time, spend my life for them as a human, I say. Not only because they are parasha, because it's a human thing, They are, as I saw them, hopes and dreaming, and every minute for Jerusalem. So I became excited, as a man, like normally men. And I try to do my best to help them. And certainly now we are on the way to help them. But the press, I know the condition of them very well because I visited them twice. 3 years ago I've been there also, see. And well, now I think they will become help more for them from the associations of Israel and America. But still, there will not be enough to give for all of them. We have in Israel bedtime. We are during 27 years war and war and war and war. You see, and this is a problem also for us. You see.
I know, I realize that.
Yeah, and we have also problems of the Russian Jews also, and we come, to answer all the problems
I know.
in once.
Humanly, it's impossible.
Yeah, impossible. Yes. So we do my best. First of all, what remained from the historical things in Ethiopia. But certainly we will do. I think now will be a little bit more better. Tea is for us. Shila Vishilutei. Toda. Chai.
This is the main thing that the rabbi wanted.
Yes.
The main problem that they feel is that one major thing. They see no reason why they don't know what the budget is. What's his idea? That there be representatives from every major village area. A representative. Meet all together. Know what the budget is from the association, what the money budget is. And according to the need of every village area, then put it out in that area. They want to know, why are they never told what the money budget is? And they feel, because they're never told, that there's something underhanded going on, and that really, that they aren't getting what the other people, because they also know that the Jews that are giving their $10, $20, $5, whatever they are, in America, in London, these are Jewish people that are taking up with the situation. That here are their fellow Jews in Ethiopia, and they want to know, is the money going to the best cause? So the main thing that the rabbi is concerned about, or that he is holding out for, and the school teacher and get to hold. Number one, they've already set up this committee, but it has never been recognized for whoever was sent out as the representative. Number one, they want to know what the money, what the budget is. And I says, well, it sounds strange to me. I says, I don't know anything about business matters too much. I says, but I know that if any organization, first thing they know is what the budget is. So they know what they've got to work with. And I says, that sounds very common to me. And he says, what we want to know is, why can't we know what the budget is? Why is it such a secret? And he says, it makes us very suspicious. He says, isn't that we're idiots, stupid people? And he says, and so we're going to, he says, if we're starved to death, we're going to hold out for that. He says, because why should only one group of philosophists get the help and not another area? And Getahim says to me, I want to take you to some areas to see, he says, and I want you to look around. I want you to see if you can see where there's any evidence of any help being given. So also in the same area where I told you this man lived, at the Goragora area, also in this area, I was told when I arrived there that there lives close by but a fellowship group of 600 families, that only 2 or 3 of them have any sort of education, whether it's grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3, or grade 5, or whatever. No health education, no health, no school, no nothing. 600 families. Can you imagine how many children there is? Because you know that most of them have at least 4 children anyhow. But their major concern is, and he specifically told me, he says, you're an outsider. He says, you're not in any way attached to us. He says, why can't we be told what the budget is? And I says, well, from what little did I know, even in our small little organizations that we had in school, the first major issue was that, how much money do we have? And then we worked out what we could spend for this and what we could spend for that. He says, well, that's how we want to do it. He says, to us that sounds like the most sensible thing to do. And at the moment they have get to him as a secretary because...
Yes, I have already, you see, I have here already the association, he sent me already the names in English, Hebrew, and certainly I will send, this is the handwriting of Bitahon Mamo, you see, and I received it only a month ago, and I'm going to help them anyway. You see, here is the name. But it's still, for me, one problem. It is the unity of the people there, you see. And this is the problem, you see, the main problem in places like Ethiopia. As you know, when you give anyone $1, the other one normally wants, because they are all of them poor, And I know this condition. And I try to help them from my pocket money. I send them, for example, to Chief Rabbi, to Mikhail Eshkol. But I know it is not enough, you see. But now, they are a budget, they have a lot of money, around $100,000, American dollar they have, there for the association in Ethiopia. So will be, for beginning, it is enough, you see. But the problem is who work for this budget, you see, and how to divide this budget there. And we can't control the budget there, just only from the article what they send Gershon to us, you see. And the budget, all the budget are in the hand of Gershon lady, because he been already sent from the from London Association, you see. This is the problem, the main problem. I hope it will be a little bit more than help from Gershon, but there will be still not enough for all. And we are looking for other groups to go there, volunteers from France, from England, you see, to help those people. So this is remaining my main point, and I'm working for that all these days.
Do you know the man in Addis Ababa?
In Addis Ababa, what?
Yeah, the man that is...
Yona Bogale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So already I know him. He's leading, he's receiving the money all the time. And we know 10 years ago the budget was of $10,000, but now there are more $100,000, you see. And certainly they are not enough for them, but we'll try to get more and more every year, we push more.
Is that just from America, or is that the combination of
England, America, and Israel? Is a combination from associations.
Well, see, they...
So we collect the money, but not enough, you see.
Well,
not enough.
Yeah. Of course, money never is enough.
Yeah, that's it.
And they said, if it cannot be used to help them in a way that's going to help them, that, for goodness sakes, put away some money so that when they come to Israel, it can help them with Aliyah.
Yeah.
And help them here. They're going to need an awful lot when they get here. Number one, we're going to have schools for them. And they're coming. They're coming whether or not Israel believes it at this time, whether they're going to accept them or not. they're still coming. The philosophers are coming to Israel. This is going to be their hope. There's going to be major problems here once we get here. We're going to need someone who knows the people very well, who's speaking not only English and Hebrew and Herod, but who knows the people very well, who knows all the areas, who knows who's the leader, who knows what one person does, who knows their character very well. You need someone like that who knows their people very well, because you're going to need all the help you get. You're going to need it. They need schools. Now, they have a tremendous determination. I believe they're very intelligent people.
Yeah.
And they pick up Hebrew very quickly because there's that drive. They're going to learn it. They're going to learn it if they have to. Yeah. This little girl that took a real liking to me, little Aura, when I first met her, here was this little tiny voice walking behind me. I was cutting across the hills to go on or taking the shortcut. And this little girl says, "Shalom." I turned around. I said, "Shalom." She said, "Mashlomek." Talk to her. And she talked in Hebrew the whole way. Her little legs were just going like that, and I had to run to keep up to her. And she was running to go to the market for her grandparents, who were the other rabbis lived in Mordecai. She talked in Hebrew the whole way, and she only talked in the Hebrew that she had learned from the school teacher.
Yeah.
And she was just as black could be. Very beautiful girl, but she had the soft and natural curly hair that I've ever seen. And then in the Simeon, I've seen some that when I'm really tanned, they look just like I do, with very silky hair, very beautiful silky hair. And then some of them are much lighter and really kinky, the typical Ethiopian. Yeah, they're very, very different that way.
Yeah.
And so I was really thrilled to see the great difference in all that. But when they come to Ethiopia, number one, where are they going to live? Where are they going to go to school? But they can learn at night. All the adults can learn at night. They can learn during the daytime. I believe they'll have that drive to learn Hebrew just as fast. And all the men said, all these tough men from Simeon, "We'll fight in the army." He says, by that time, they must be getting tired. They need some extra blood in that army. But they're quite willing to fight in the army. I says, yes, I can see you all down in the Sinai already guarding. Well, they're determined. They're very, I said to them, I am certainly glad I'm on your side. I says, I wouldn't want to be against you people. But they're quite very, very amusing people. They have a tremendous sense of humor. They told me in Simeon that they were going to keep me there. They were going to find me a husband and not let me go back to Israel. I says, oh, you can't do that. I says, what about my parents? I said, they'll never see me again. Well, you can write and tell them that everything. How cold the said is that. You can write and tell your parents to come and see you. By that time, you'll be so happy. We'll build your hut for you. We'll make sure you have oranges and bananas and injera and what, and we'll make sure that you have people to help you. And they says, we'll get you a husband. And I says, but I'm used to choosing my own. I'm used to having people choose, husbands for me. And he says, well, never mind. He says, we'll line them all up. You can take what you want. And they says, what do you think about that idea? And I says, well, I really don't know what to say, except they says, well, we'll make sure that your life is very good. He says, and you can help us. And I says, well, the helping part, I says, I don't hesitate about that. But I says, I'm not quite sure it'll work out. And they says, well, don't you think you'll be happy? And I says, no, I think I'd probably end up crying. And he says, well, if you're going to cry, he says, no sense in you staying here, he says, because we don't want anybody unhappy. So I found there was a tremendous sense of humor.
Yeah.
Tremendous sense of humor.
Tell me, around your trip, did you saw clinics only in Hamburg or in other places?
For the Philosophers.
Yeah.
Only in Hamburg.
Only in Hamburg.
Now, there are other areas where other missionary Christian groups have clinics, and which they're very good to the Philosophers.
Yeah.
And they're kind of partial to them.
Yeah.
And so they give them treatment.
Yeah.
And they are very fond of that treatment because they know they're going to get the best.
Yeah.
Because they're foreigners,
usually,
and they know they're going to get good care. But I only saw it
that's all.
Yeah.
And it made me think, what about this one family with 300 families? It's only one small example. Another area of 600 families, no care.
Okay.
No one to take care of them. Also, there was another area on the other side of the Seine where Getterhan took Yael, and they went on that road. And we stayed in the home of the leader there, who was also an old man. And his family... Yes.
תמי, היא יכולה לנסוע לאילת, אני אשלח לה בדואר, כי היא את הכתובת שלה באילת. אוקיי, הכי טוב. כן.
And he had his family living with him, his grandson and his granddaughter, and etc. And the son was very, very sick. He was very ill. I could tell he was very ill. I don't know whether he had pneumonia or bronchitis or a combination of both, plus malnourishment, plus 100 other things. And they were crowded, so we slept outside. Sometimes there was a group of us that slept outside under the stars, and believe me, it was cold. I was really cold.
Yeah, I felt that when I was in my trip in Tigray, just the same. It was very, very cold.
But this particular area was extremely cold, and there was 30 families that lived there in that area. And we're kind of isolated. And I was awake most of the night because I didn't sleep because it was very cold. And I had 2 blankets on me, plus all my clothes on. And I thought, my heavens, those people hardly had any bit of blankets on them. I could hear it from every hut, people coughing all night long, up with the fire, warming their hands like this, drinking, making coffee to keep warm. And I thought of that little boy that I knew was very, very sick. And the grandfather said that he embraced him at night to keep him warm. Well, if that doesn't tug at your heart, I don't know what will. It doesn't make any difference who you are. Yeah. But the little boy was really sick. So I said to them, listen, I says, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to ask God to heal this boy. I says, because I have nothing. I can do nothing for him. I says, let's pray, and I'm going to ask God to heal him. I says, he can do it the fastest of any one of us. And when I left, I gave the grandfather some money so at least the boy could get meat or eggs, milk, something substantial over a long period of time so that he could build up his health. And they had taken him to the hospital to say that there's so many people waiting in the hospital. And their hospital is just a little dispensary.
Yeah, I know it.
And what could the little boy do? And he says, none of our children, he says, we'd like to send them to school. They'd have to walk for hours to get to the school, number one. Number two, they're so poor, they would be there all day long. They'd have to take their food for all day long. They'd have no place to cook it. And when they get to school, they're ridiculed because they're fallacious. And they're teased. And their life is made unbearable. He says, oh, what can you do? I says, well, I don't blame you for not sending your children to school. For one thing, the little ones, it's so hard on them. How can they make enough of them? Real sheer determination. That's how Gideon got his school.
Yeah.
Sheer determination. All through his life. He told me, I dropped a little bit here and a little bit there. I wanted to understand a bit more of how he grew up. And I could see that it was through sheer determination. But God helped him. I could see how God helped him. And how God would bring one in here to help him, another in there, all different countries. And I says, God has been good to you, Gilderman. I says, you should thank God for what he's done for you. I says, because I can see how he's helped you, even though it's been hard. I says, it's made you into that person that you are today. And he says, yes. He says, I know, it's been hard. I says, don't you worry. I says, you cling to that which you feel is right, and God will bring you honor. And of course he says, well, that may be true, he says. He says, but I think you speak more from your heart than your head. And I says, it doesn't matter. I says, I just may be a woman. I says, but a lot of times, speaking from the heart speaks more than speaking from the head. I says, would you rather that I be a friend to you that gives you a lot of money and doesn't care about your everyday existence, or whether I be a friend that will be our friends for life. And although I can't help in great matters, give a lot of money, but I can help. You would know, at least know my prayers are with you. You at least know that I, in my own small way, am trying to help, whatever way that may be. I says, I know I can't do anything, but I know that God can do great things for you. I says, and if it's His will, He's going to do it. I says, doesn't matter what anybody says about you, what's going to happen. I says, God's going to be the one that will help you. Help the philosophers, help the rabbi. I says, not just help one group of people or one village, but all the villages. You do it. I says, because there are people in Israel even now that you don't even know about that are believing God for you. I says, whether they be Jew or Gentile. I says, and God's got them all over. You don't even think, I says, that God doesn't have His own ways of speaking to His people today. He says, there you go, speaking with your heart again.
Have you been in one of the festival of the Falasha? It was 3 months ago. It was a big festival.
In Hamburger?
Near Hamburger.
No, I wasn't there. I had just arrived.
Yeah.
I think I just arrived, and I couldn't make it that day. And in the Tigray province,
Yeah.
when I was praying that night,
Yeah.
I felt that God told me to leave.
Yeah. Why?
Well, I don't know why. I didn't know why at that time, but I'll tell you what I found out when we left the Tigray province. We left one morning, very early. Mikhail got up, and he led us back to the bus station. We got the early morning bus. Otherwise, if I would have stayed, I would have had to have gotten the next bus. Next day. We found out later.
שלום, שלום.
שלום,
שלום, כל טוב.
שלום. לחזור אולי.
אני אשלח לך מכתב קודם כל, כי אני אדבר עם משרד הפנים, אחר כך אני אשלח לך מכתב, בסדר?
בסדר, אני מבין אותה.
שלום, שלום. שלום, שלום.
שלום. שלום.
בבקשה.
And so we didn't hear this until much later. But the next bus, that if you had stayed any longer, was held up by bandits. I tell you, they shot the driver. They held up every person in the bus. They made them all get out of the bus. And they held them all by gunpoint. They took all their clothes. First of all, they took all the money away from them. One man lost 3,000 Ethiopian dollars. This never got in the paper. A lot of this never gets in the paper. But because we were in that area, we heard about it. You know, because the police that were in this area, and the philosophers that may be working in the army, they know Getahon. It seems to be known all over. They know him. And they told him the story. Plus, they took all their clothes away on them because they took the money and the clothes to help them in the bandits. Because they have wife and children and whatnot out in the bush. So if we would have been on that bus, we would have been on that.
Same situation.
Same situation, and I thought, thank you, God. I was thankful. And so, because when I said to get to home, I says, I would have dearly loved, my natural thinking would have been to stay there for the great things. I wanted to pray and to see them pray and to believe that God would bring them. That's what's my natural thing. I would have loved to do it. But when I was praying that night, I felt that God told me to leave. And I understood why. Now, a lot of people call it a circumstance. And Getahon says, well, that was just a circumstance. I says, call it what you want, Getahon. I says, I'm thankful that we went. I says, I feel differently about it. I says, because I know that God still leads His people today. And I says, you'd probably say that I'm thinking by my heart again. He said, I said, but anyhow, it got us out of that situation. So that was just an example of why. So it sounds very strange, but it really shouldn't be very strange. And Mikhail looked at me one day and he said, you're a very strange person, he said. He says, you're not like the usual people that come. He says, we only think that Christians help. And I says, well, there are other people that are concerned too. I says, because, of course, you're going to inherit God's promise. He's told you, He's promised people. Whether other people believe it or not, you still are. That's how it is. It's written in the book. It's written in the book. And he looked at me and he says, you know, he says, when I look at you, he says, I think of Jeremiah 16:16. And that portion about sending the fisher to fish them. And I says, yes, but did you read the last part of that? It says, and after the fishers come the hunters to hunt them. I says, and hunters usually bring harm and they kill. I says, so sometimes, although it seems very strange to you that a woman arrives saying that she's concerned and saying that she believes God, what promises are for you people. I said, I know it sounds very strange, but it shouldn't be too strange. I says, because after all, didn't God use a Gentile king to bring about his promises for his people? I says, then why can't he use a simple little woman? And they laugh, and they says, never mind. He says, whatever you are, they says, we like you because you like us. And I says, well, I says, I know what God's promises are. I says, and I believe his promises. And I says, do you believe God's promises or do you believe man's promises? He said, we believe God's promises. Well, I said, then hang on to God's promises. Don't hang on to me. Hang on to God. So they laughed. They enjoyed teasing me.
Very interesting.
But they were anxious to know how you felt about them. For one thing, we hadn't heard from you for a long time. And I says, well, you must remember one thing. Sometimes it may be a bit dubious as to whether or not all the mail gets from Israel to Ethiopia.
No, I wasn't absent for 2 months. So they don't get a mail. When I came after 2 months, I was on duty out from my office, serving the country.
You were in the army, or?
Yes.
I saw a picture of you in an army uniform in one man's place at, what's the name of that place? I can't pronounce it correctly. He showed us Maximite. I saw a picture of you there.
So when I came back to my office, I found a lot of letters. And just only now, 2 weeks ago, I come back, you see. So I have a lot of work now to do. First of all, to send back letters to all the people who send me letters from Ethiopia. Yeah. And daily also, some people, as you see, this woman, the Ethiopian woman also, they have own problems, daily problems. And I have to work 15, 16 or 17 or 18 hours a day.
You need an Ethiopian here to help you.
Yeah.
You need an Ethiopian, definitely. You definitely do.
Yeah.
Someone who knows the people very well, very well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them, they're like any other people. But every Ethiopian person feels that every person that's a Jew, every person from Israel, is perfect. They think that they're perfect. They can do no harm. They do no devious things. And so they're going to be in for some rather shocks. Because I told them, I said, you've got to realize that in every country there's good and bad.
Did you visit Farashas? Did you make Farashas in Beersheba?
No, I don't know. I've just gone down to Beersheba. I study in Beersheba, and then I'd be from Thursday afternoon, Friday, and Saturday I'm in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Come up to Jerusalem for Shabbat.
Yeah.
And then go back to Africa.
Where do you live? Where are you staying in Jerusalem?
In Jerusalem, I'm staying at Al-Fassi Street.
Al-Fassi, yeah, I saw there you were.
I'm staying with some friends.
Yeah.
When I come up, they're American people, and they're studying Hebrew also.
Yeah, studying Hebrew also. Yeah. And you will stay a couple of months now?
Oh, I hope I'll be able to stay longer than that.
More than longer?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
I mean, I'm just beginning to learn Hebrew. After I learn some Hebrew,
Yeah.
I think I need to have somebody teach me some Amharic.
Yeah. Well, for Amharic you will get here somebody
Yeah.
to teach you.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to stay here? I mean, you can for a long time here.
Well, I'm hoping that I will be able to stay. Yes.
Yes?
Yes. I love Israel.
Yeah.
I love Israel very much.
Okay. Can you tell me please about the land law now in Ethiopia?
Well, from what I could see, that I was told by the Falashas themselves, that the ruling of the new government was that no longer were the Falashas to pay their landlords the tax for working on their particular land. Before this, they were asking a quarter of the crop or a half of the crop, and in some areas, more than a half of the crop. But the Falashas told me that although it is law on paper, that there is no practice to enforce it in reality. And so that still they have to pay to their Christian landlords the amount of anywhere from a quarter of their crop of their grain, or a half, or over half, which makes it extremely difficult for the Falashas, because as they become harder and harder on them, their food supply is diminishing, and it's more difficult. If they refuse to give them this amount of their crop at the harvest time, then the Christian landlords will just come and take the land away from them.
You know, enforce?
They'll enforce them.
Yeah.
Yes, they'll enforce them, because they know that then in this way it will drive the Falashas away. It will drive them away. So this is what they're doing. There's one man that I met in Walliger area, Mr. Otto.
Atomamo. Murumamo.
Yes.
Murumamo is from Wagara.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And he's the one who's responsible for that area. And he's a very well-known leader, and I believe you know him yourself.
He was member of the Senate also.
Yes, he's a very well-known man.
Yeah.
Now, this man refused to pay his landlord anything. He said that it is the law. He refused to do it. He had to literally work his land by guns. It was like Nehemiah on the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
He had to have a gun in one hand and work with his tools. And one night, the Christian landlord came, and they worked the land, and the next day they says, no, this is our land now. We've taken it from you because you didn't give us what is rightfully ours.
Yeah.
And so there was a skirmish, and guns were fired and whatnot, but he's still determined. So he still has his land. But he doesn't leave his house, goes anywhere without his gun, because his very life is in danger from them. But he is the only one in that area that sticks up for his rights, so to say. And this man is, from this area, is well known among all the Falashas and all the villages, who is very good with helping the Falashas.
Yeah, Murumamo. Yeah, I know him. He's from Wagara.
Yeah, and he has spent much of his own money, much of his own time, to help all the Falashas, and he is doing his best in his corner to help all the Falashas and to try to be fair, and he agrees with the rabbi.
You've been in Wagara?
Yes, I stayed in his home.
You stayed in his home?
I stayed in his home.
Did you saw a clinic there in schools?
No.
No?
No schools.
No
No
schools?
clinics.
No clinics?
In the area where he went. No. But his children, some of the children, walked a long, long way, which took me, I think, about 2.5 hours, or perhaps even longer to walk to the nearest town where the school was.
Yeah.
But even then, it's difficult for them, because many times they are not accepted by the other children, and they are teased very much because they are Falashas.
Yeah.
For that reason. So it's difficult for them. But they have no health facilities unless they go to government, and there it's very difficult for them because they have to wait, and it's a long way, and they don't have very much money because most of the money is taken from them from the land, which really rightfully now is theirs. They aren't to pay this rent. If they had that money where they had to pay to the landlord, perhaps they would have had enough money to get hospitalization or to have enough food. But
Did he try to go to the government? He doesn't told you that?
Did he try to go to the government?
Yeah.
Well, I think that, yes, I believe it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on this, I'm not sure. I'm sure that he does because the government knows him quite well in that area.
Yeah.
He's a well-known man in that area. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I have his picture.
Yeah. You have already?
It needs to be developed. But as soon as I get it developed,
Give me to develop all the pictures, and I'll develop you here. You have film here?
yeah, I have film. I have it here in my purse.
Okay, you give me, I will develop for you.
And it's pictures of all the lodges the areas I've been in, the rabbi, get to Horn, some of the areas that I've been in. These are slides.
Yes, this is slides.
They're slides. And so they have to be put from slides to
The
pictures, which I have to get extra ones because I have promised all these people that I will send them
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
And I have especially told him that he wants you to have a picture.
Yeah.
And I made him smile. And he didn't like the idea. I said, but you must show him that you are a nice, friendly man. He was very good to me. He was very, very good to me. Because,
How many days you spend in Wogara?
well, I visited 3 times. Because
3 times?
Yes. One time I came and stayed overnight. And another time I was passing through from the Simeon. When I went to the Simeon, and when I came back. So I was in his home 3 times.
Yeah.
And enjoyed the hospitality of his home. And his brother lent me a horse to go back to the town instead of walking. So I took a picture. There's a picture in there also of his brother who has a big gun and all these shells and his horse. I mean, it looks really tremendous.
His brother, you know, he's a case. He's a prophet.
I didn't meet all his brothers. Now he's got quite a few brothers.
He has 2 brothers, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a very, very good man.
Yeah, he's a good leader of men.